Hi, my name is Claire Cook, and today I'll be presenting a short lecture on my dissertation topic from my master's at the University of York, titled Mosaic Humanity, an investigation into the influence of Neanderthal material cultures on Mid to Upper Paleolithic and Upper Paleolithic modern human cultures in Europe and surrounding narratives. I had several motivations to conduct this research. The first was to challenge the longstanding narrative of Neanderthals as inferior to modern humans because they lacked intelligence, were uncultured, they were violent, and just subhuman. And that is the way that historically in academia and popular culture they've been portrayed since their discovery. I wanted to see if that was accurate, or if that was reflected in the archaeological record, or maybe if it was just a bias from the modern human perspective. I also wanted to understand our modern human path to survival in unfamiliar landscapes and climatic conditions of Europe, because as we all know, sites like Upper Mandrin Cave demonstrate that modern humans were making incursions into Europe from about 210,000 years ago all the way up until 50,000 years, which is a date I suspect will be pushed back with the discovery of new sites in the future. But we did not grasp a firm foothold on European colonization until about 50,000 years ago. So I wondered if Neanderthals were complicit in our survival instead of competing for our resources, and I wanted to see if the data reflected that. Then I wanted to see if anything lent support to the theory that Neanderthals went extinct due to a culmination of factors instead of being outcompeted by modern humans. And that was the case, that I found several things that impeded their survival, such as repeated bottlenecking events that led to genetic instability and then population decreases, which made it more difficult to find different groups to mate with, and it was a self-repeating cycle. So all of those things plus the climatic variance really impeded their survival up until modern humans got there, and then they continued to trend out of existence at the same rate that they did before modern humans arrived on the scene in Europe. So overall, it seemed that they were not outcompeted by modern humans or violently taken out of the hominin lineage. Examining the body of genetic evidence, we are able to determine that Neanderthals and modern humans had a couple of introgression events that led to the contribution of 2 to 4% of our modern human genome in populations outside of sub-Saharan Africa. So introgression events are not news to the paleoarchaeological community as far as significant events go, but we are aware in recent research, mainly in the 21st century, that Neanderthals introgressed with modern humans outside of that region as well, notably in Europe, in populations that didn't survive to extant lineages. We are able to splice out individuals who had 4 to 6 generations between them and the immediate introgression events. So those individuals and their significance to the archaeological record as a whole indicate that modern humans did not see any kind of difference between them and Neanderthals in a way that would inhibit procreation with them. So material cultural influence certainly wouldn't be off the table as far as bilateral acculturation or unidirectional acculturation would go. Comparative lithic analysis was one of the first methods that I thought might display evidence of acculturation from Neanderthals to modern humans, because the development of lithic industries in Paleolithic Europe was prolific, and some might say too prolific based on the categorization of lithic industries based on site specificity, but I go into that more in my paper. But I did a comprehensive review of lithic industries in the Middle Paleolithic, beginning with the Acheulean, all the way through until the Aurignacian at the termination of the early Upper Paleolithic. These were incredibly helpful for comparing and contrasting different techniques used by both Neanderthals and modern humans, not only in relation to each other, but in relation to lithic industries from their own past and into the future. Relative stratigraphy was also something that proved extremely useful, as was demonstrated by the Grotte Mandrin Cave site, which was my case study in France. And this was incredibly useful because it would determine if occupation of the site was sequential and chronostratigraphically separate, or if it was simultaneous and implied interaction between the two groups. Osteoarchaeological analysis was also something that came to mind, but I didn't rely on it quite as heavily in this research. Instead, I proposed that it be used in future research to retrieve samples from Neanderthal and, for lack of a better term, hybridized human remains to see if we could utilize them in strontium isotope analysis to see where the pollen indicated that they were eating from or gathering resources from, and then triangulate sites, areas that might produce evidence of acculturation more that would precede intergression events. And of course, visual examination of bones to identify species was also helpful. The main challenge with this research was overlap. We knew that Neanderthals and modern human groups did in fact cross paths a lot of times, even because of the introgression events, but how frequently was not clear, and the extent of these overlap interactions were also unclear, but the chances and the frequency of these interactions were lower than would be optimal because there were so few Neanderthals in Europe at the time. My case study was Grotte Mandrin Cave in France, which demonstrated multiple intact stratigraphic layers of alternating Neanderthal and modern human occupation, but no evidence pointed to interaction between these groups in this cave. So the narrative explanation for intrastratified occupations could have something to do with ethnographic evidence that I explain in my paper reflects those interactions between passive groups of hunter-gatherers today that are historically documented, and could possibly have something to do with alternate subsistence techniques. Conclusions reached from this research were interesting and not what I had hypothesized. Based off of historically documented Pigeon Creole dynamics, as well as the wealth of genetic and archaeological data found in this paper, I do believe that introgression indicated that acculturation more than likely occurred between Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Though it was not at Grotte Mandrin Cave, it did not display any evidence of acculturation despite interstratified layers of occupation. Future research might yield evidence of this, but that is only to be determined. So thank you for watching my lecture, and if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.